All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of D and D Deep Dive, the show where we dive deep into classes, subclasses, and other features of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons to help you get the most out of your choices. So today, we got some Tasha news, and this isn't a leak. This isn't rumors. This is official stuff. Today, as I am recording this, it happened about an hour ago. Wizards of the Coast has released an updated errata to coincide with the changes made into the Tasha's Cauldron of everything. If you're not familiar with the term errata, it's effectively with hardcover books. To give you an example, this is one of the books that has been errated. With hardcover books, if they change something in the book, in the new printings, the changes will be in there. But if you have an older book, you will have mistakes in the earlier one. Sometimes the changes are just typos and stuff that's fixed. But a lot of times in D&D, those changes are rules changes because they didn't realize this could be broken or things like that. I actually have two different players' handbooks. Because the first one I got, there was an issue with the spines and the glue they used to keep everything together that would cause the first printing of, I believe, the first three core books to wear out and the pages to start falling out. Wizards of the Coast was great. They went and they just replaced all I had to do was just show them a picture of the pages falling out, and Wizards of the Coast replaced my PHB for free. However, I went from a first printing to I think like a second or third printing of the PHB. So I actually have two different versions of it, and officially, whatever the latest version is, whatever one coincides with the errata, is the one that's official. And I'm going to put this back because it's big. Due to the fact that Tasha's is changing how certain things will work, in addition to adding new rules and stuff like that, they released this errata. So that everything works together. You don't want different books contradicting themselves. And there's some pretty big, cool stuff. So I had to make a video today talking about it. So I'm just going to go real quick. I will have a link in the description to the actual website where you can actually look at the errata yourself. The errata document is all the errata for the game going all the way back to the first printing. So it's a relatively long, it's a 21 page document, and there's actually a bunch of sub erratas that it lists. Everything from PHB errata, Monster Manual, Eberron, Ghost of Saltmarsh. They have links to all those other errata. So if you want to read through all of it, it's a bit of a slog. But it's if you're ever running about, or this is actually the sage advice is what it is. And then they have a link to all the different erratas. So yeah, sage advice is a great thing to look at because they give rulings on questions that people give, and they're pretty insightful because they'll give you the idea of rules as intended versus rules as written, and see what the designers actually wanted and how they wanted the game to play compared to how someone that's really good at reading into words can get the game to play. So so let's dive into what the actual erratas are. First things first, the first two new things, which if you're looking at the sage advice and you want to know what the new things are, if you open up the PDF and just hit Control F in Windows or whatever the thing is for the find feature in Um, why do I not? There it is. On Macs, I don't use a Mac, so I don't know. But if you hit Control F and then type in brackets NEW, all capital letters, close bracket, um, it will actually take you directly to the new things because they are labeled. So the first two new things is the Eberron Rising from the Last War Errata is out. I don't know if this Errata has been out before. Because I went and I looked through all of that and I couldn't find anything listed as new. So it's possible that the Eberron Errata is brand new. So we'll be covering that later. I want to get through this as a sage advice first. And then the Sword Coast Adventures Guide Errata has been updated. And we will cover those updates in just a second. But it is. I do want to cover the two new sage advice questions that they answered in this. So the first new sage advice is what I'm calling Punchy Paladin. The question is, can a paladin use divine smite when they hit using an unarmed strike? So pretty basic question. We've talked about paladins before. One of their defining features is their ability to smite. And that's basically when you make a weapon attack and you hit with it, you can add on extra damage by burning a spell slot. This is asking if they punch. So without using an actual weapon, can they still smite? And according to them, their answer is no. Divine Smite isn't intended to work with unarmed strikes. And they go on to clarify. Divine Smite does work with a melee weapon at attack, and an unarmed strike can be used to make such an attack. But the text of the Divine Smite also refers to the, quote, weapons damage, unquote. And an unarmed strike isn't a weapon. And this is something that they've talked about quite often. There are a lot of things that require an unarmed weapon attack. And what defines that has been kind of weird. But one of the first erratas they did was in the original PHB. Unarmed strikes were listed on the weapon table. And they took that off because it created some issues with people being able to use unarmed strikes with a lot of different abilities, and considering them weapons meant you could add items that enhance weapons to your unarmed strikes, and it created a lot of issues. So they took unarmed strike off the weapon table, and they say unarmed strikes are not weapons. Now, monks have very specific things that allow them to treat unarmed strikes as weapon attacks and as weapon damage when other classes can't. It's one of the unique things about being a monk. But for the most part, unarmed strikes don't count as weapons. So that's what they're talking about here. Is paladins are designed to be able to smite with their weapons, not by punching. However, there's one final thing they to talk about here, which is if a DM decides to override this rule, no imbalance is created. Tying Divine Smite to weapons was a thematic choice on our part, paladins being traditionally associated with weapons. It was not a game balance choice. So this does put a specific emphasis on the idea that this isn't a balance thing. This is a theme thing. This is to keep the paladin within the idea and the theme we designed it around. We didn't create punchy paladins. However, there's no. It's not going to break your game if you decide you want punchy paladins. And personally, I think that's kind of cool. I actually created a divine subclass for the monk. It's not great. I need to design it because it's unbalanced, and I had a healing mechanic in there that just doesn't work. but I like the idea of a divine based monk, because you already have an arcane monk in the four elements monk. Um, and you already have so many, like you have Way of Shadow is a sneaky monk, a rogue monk. You have the Kensei, which is a weapon wielding monk. Like you have all these different things, and in other classes, you will regularly have arcane subclasses, like the arcane trickster or the eldritch knight, things like that. But you generally will never see a divine subclass other than there's a sorcerer subclass called the divine soul. That's the only divine subclass I have seen. And so I really would like a divine based monk. I think it fits with the theme. Like I said, I tried to do it. I didn't do it great. So I gotta rework some stuff in that some day. But yeah, with this, you could make a Punchy Paladin, which I just like the idea of someone going, in the name of Tom, pow! Like, this is just cool. Cool. So the next one is the oh no, this one isn't. We'll get to the next one in a second. This one is the question is can I cast Animate Dead on the humanoid shaped corpse of an undead creature such as a zombie or a ghast? So the question basically being, Animate Dead requires the corpse of a humanoid in order to do it. Or a pile of bones, I believe. And if you animate a corpse, you get a zombie, and if you animate bones, you get a skeleton. This is asking, zombies are not classified as humanoids. They're classified as undead in the monster manual. So rules as written, you can't raise dead a zombie to get another zombie, which makes sense because effectively that would mean you would just never run out of zombies as long as you had animate dead slots. So the answer, when Animate Dead targets a corpse, the body must have belonged to a creature of the humanoid creature type. If the spell targets a pile of bones, there's no creature type restrictions. The bones become a skeleton. So yeah, it's specifically saying, no, you can't reanimate as a zombie. Once a zombie's dead, it's dead. So those are the only new changes in the Sage Advice compendium, which again, the Sage Advice is just questions people ask to Wizards of the Coast, and they give official rulings on it. However, Errata, and I'm going to go back up. Okay. So Errata changed some really big things. Tasha's, it has already been confirmed. Tasha's has changed how the cantrip Booming Blade works. If you watched my Blade Singer video, we talked about Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade. Those are the specific Blade Singer cantrips they added to the game. However, you don't actually have to be a Blade Singer to use them. They appear on the Sorcerer's spell list, the Wizard's spell list, the Warlock's spell list. I think that's it. I don't think they appear on the Bard spell list. So a lot of different classes can use them. And because of how they were worded, there were issues. So I'm going to real quick go over the changes they made in the Sword Coast Adventures Guide. The first change they made, if you've never read the Sword Coast Adventures Guide, the first like 90 some odd pages, maybe like 100 some odd pages of the book, are lore. There's no mechanical anything in it. It's just lore. So the first update is for the section called the Afterlife. It's just lore, so I'm not going to go over it because we don't really do lore discussions here that much. I may do it in a different series if I ever make it. So yeah, so that was just lore stuff. However, going into the character options, which start into chapter 4, the first new one is the Blade Song. And this is the Errata. The two sentences after the bulleted list now read, you can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses of it when you finish a long rest. Before, and I'll actually bring up the Sword Coast Adventures Guide here, so, because again, hardcover book, a physical book, they can't actually errata it like they can online. Where if you go to D&D Beyond, I will almost guarantee these erratas are already implemented or will be implemented within the next couple of days here. The Blade Song in the original one says you can use this feature twice. You regain all expended uses of it when you finish a short or long rest. So they've now changed the Blade Song from using it to twice per short or long rest to tying it to the proficiency bonus. Now, we've talked about this proficiency bonus thing with the dragon subclasses. Apparently they're really into it. I'm going to assume a lot of Tasha's is going to have things tied to proficiency bonus instead of ability modifiers, which again, I can see why they did it. It helps to more easily slowly ramp up abilities compared to if you tie it to like your intelligence modifier for a wizard. Wizards are going to have a 20 intelligence. At the latest, it will be level 8. Some of them will have it by level 4, depending on how well they rolled their initial stats. This just kind of ensures that you're getting more uses as you level up instead of getting a bunch of uses right away and then it never gets more powerful. I'm not 100% certain how much I like this feature. However, specifically for the Blade Song, this actually gives you more uses of your Blade Song. Because when you choose this at the third level, you have 2, but once you get to 5th level, that's when your proficiency bonus goes up to plus 3. So you instantly get more uses of it. And yeah, technically with a short rest, you could get more uses throughout the day at lower levels. But once you get to higher levels, Blade Song is always going to have more uses than it used to, which is a defining feature of the Blade Singer. So yeah, I like this, and I think we can expect going forward to just have a lot more things tied to your proficiency bonus instead of modifiers. The next change they make, and this one I'm going to have to read how they do it into the Tasha's because the list here gives so much leeway. The extra attack feature for the Blade Singer has been modified. It says the following text has been added after the first sentence. Moreover, you can cast one of your cantrips in place of one of those attacks. So now Blade Singers can make an attack and use a cantrip. Actually making their extra attack useful. If you watched my Blade Singer video, after you get to about a level 11, it is completely pointless for you to ever use your attack action because your cantrips will always do more damage and will be more useful, especially if you're using one of the Blade Singer cantrips. With this, however, now you're actually using the attack action more often. Now, the only thing here is they don't actually clarify if you can only do that once or if this effectively lets you cast 2 cantrips per attack action. Because they specifically state, moreover, you can cast one of your cantrips in place of one of those attacks. It uses the word can, which means you don't have to, but you have the option to replace one of the attacks. If you replace one of the attacks and then replace another one of the attacks, you could read this as them saying you can replace both attacks with cantrips. I don't think that's what they mean. I think it effectively means you can now make an attack and cast a cantrip, which is very, very similar to an Eldritch Knight feature, but they get it significantly later, and the wording is vastly different for it. So I'll be interested. I want to see how they actually print it into Tasha's, because this specifically is designed to coincide with the changes that they made into Tasha's. So I'm interested to see how they listed there, and I will guarantee one of the first sage advices that come out. They come out normally once a month. One of the first sage advices that comes out after Tasha's launches, it's going to be asking, does this mean can I cast 2 cantrips? And they will clarify that. I will guarantee it, because there's just too much in there that I could, being someone that knows how to manipulate words, I could totally read that as now I can double cast cantrips, which gets super powerful as you get to higher levels. The other thing that they did is they changed Booming Blade, Green Flame Blade, Lightning Lure, and Sword Burst. Those are the 4. I'm going to try this again. Those are the 4 Blade Singer cantrips, and they're good reason why they changed them. So Booming Blade was the most popular Blade Singer cantrip because basically you would make a melee attack against a creature, and then if they willingly moved before the start of your next turn, they would take extra damage. What you would see, because the range on Booming Blade was 5 feet, people would take the Spell Sniper feat, which doubles the range of spells that have an attack range. And they would use a weapon with reach. And so what would happen is, and then they would also combine it with, either they would do that, or they would combine it with Sentinel, which lets you make opportunity attacks whenever anyone enters your attack range. And so what they would do is they attack from range against a melee user, and then the melee user, in order to hit them, would have to move forward, taking effectively double damage every single time you use this cantrip. It was the reason it was the most popular, because you could double your damage by just using a whip. So they have changed the range. They have changed the range to self 5-foot radius, which doesn't allow for the Spell Sniper feat to extend the range. They also change the wording of it. It used to be, as part of the action used to cast this spell, you make a weapon attack against a creature. Now it says you brandish the weapon used in the spell's casting and make a melee attack with it against one creature within 5 feet of the view. So again, it's not within the spell's range. The range of the spell is self now. However, when you cast this self-range spell, you can make a melee attack against a creature within 5 feet. So this was specifically done, again, because people were abusing Booming Blade like crazy. It was... again, it was the most popular cantrip for any class to take, and one of the things with it is rogues would to take booming blade and use a whip because it's a finesse weapon. They'd have to take a feat or take a multi-class in something because they're not proficient in whips. But you could use a whip, and you could get sneak attack damage with booming blade, which just gives you additional attack damage based on your level because it's a cantrip and levels up. And then being a rogue, they also would have their sneak attack damage. They would just do crazy amounts of damage, and when you combine booming blade with the range, they would do crazy amounts of damage, and then the person would have to move, taking even more damage. So I like that they fixed this kind of loophole. I'm still not particularly fond of the fact that cantrips level up with your overall character level and not your spell casting class level, simply because I've talked about this before. Good class design gives you choices where neither one is going to always be the better choice. For a rogue, taking either Green Flame Blade or Booming Blade is always better, because rogues only get a single attack. They never get extra attack, and they can only do their sneak attack damage once per round. So if you take the Magic Initiate feat and get Booming Blade or Green Flame Blade, whichever one you like better, once you hit 5th level, your regular attacks do an extra D8 of either thunder or fire damage, depending on the cantrip. Once you hit 11th level, it becomes 2d8. Once you hit 17th level, it becomes the 3d8. Plus your sneak attack. And if you crit on that, you instantly do 1,000 damage. So that's the only thing that I'm less than thrilled about, because it effectively means any rogue that doesn't take the Magic Initiate feat and get either Booming Blade or Green Flame Blade is always going to do less damage in every single situation, unless they are a shooty rogue instead of a stabby rogue. They will always do less damage than a rogue that didn't take that feat. And to me, that's just bad design. I understand why they did it, because the cantrips leveling up is a good thing. Like I said, I would much rather it just be tied to any casting class. Even casting subclasses where they're like third casters, like Eldritch and a Knight. If it only leveled up with your levels in either a casting class or your total levels in a class that you've taken with a casting subclass, I would be fine with that, because that would at least require rogues to get this extra damage to take the Arcane to Trickster subclass, and it wouldn't make every single rogue in the game kind of have to take this in order to keep damage up with other rogue types. So that's Booming Blade. They did the same thing for Green Flame Blade. They did the same thing for Lightning Lure. Lightning Lure now, the range is self 15-foot radius instead of range of 15 feet. Sword Burst is self 5-foot radius instead of range of 5 feet. So yeah, you can no longer use a spell sniper to make these kind of overpowered abilities. So, and that is the only erratas to the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide. Now, Eberron, rising from the last war. There's a lot of errata here for a lot of stuff that I haven't done a D&D deep dive. Things like there's a changeling trait errata. I haven't done anything about races, mostly because with Tasha coming out, they're going to change how all that stuff works anyway. So we will deal with that when that stuff comes up. So I'm not going to go over any of that stuff. However, they do make changes specifically to the Artificer class. And we've already talked about how the Artificer is being reprinted into Tasha's guide, and they're actually making changes to it as they're now introducing it not just as an Eberron specific class, but as a class for all of D&D. And they actually have, I listened to a YouTube, or watched a YouTube video where they talk about why they're reprinting it. And they basically said, we put it in Eberron because it is such a massive part of Eberron. It is where the class first originated, and it is heavily tied into the lore of Eberron. That being said, there are artificers in the lore of just about every major D&D campaign setting. So the idea of limiting it to just Eberron just didn't make sense anymore. There are Forgotten Realms artificers. There are, artificers in Ravenloft, and there are artificers in really everywhere, because it started into the third edition. In third edition, they were still updating most of the campaign settings to the third edition. So if there's a campaign setting, there's probably a third edition version of it. So, and even before Artificer became a thing, there were kind of Tinkerer style characters and all these things. So, with that, let's talk about the changes they made specifically to the Artificer. And this may mean that I redo the Artificer, the Artificer did a D&D deep dive, because it looks like they're making significant enough changes that it'll be a bit different. So they make some changes to the ability for artificers to cast using tools sets. Specifically, it looks like they're adding Thieves Tools to the set of tools that you can use as a spellcasting focus. So in the first paragraph, Tinkers to tools or other artisans to tools has been changed to Thieves Tools or artisans to tools. So it looks like you're going to be able to use the Thieves Tools for casting. I don't remember if that was in there somewhere. I don't think so. But you effectively, you can now use lockpicks to cast your Artificer spells. Now, to kind of clarify this, the Artificer, the reason you use tools to cast your spells is the Artificer is designed that while you're casting the same spells, technically flavor-wise, you're not casting them as much as you've created the devices that will create the same effects. So let's say you are casting the Firebolt cantrip. But instead of using a wand and casting this as a spell, use Tinker Tools, because you have jury-rigged a little orb onto one of your gloves that you can just point and shoot this little bolt of fire. And you effectively just load a little thing into it and shoot this little bolt of fire. That's kind of how the Artificer is designed to work. Mechanically, it doesn't change anything. You're still casting spells. They still work the exact same way they normally would. Flavor-wise, though, they're expecting you to say that you built these items that do this is the same thing, which I think is really fun and cool. Yeah, now you can use the Thieves Tools, which thematically I want to see if they actually give examples, maybe in pictures, of using the Thieves Tools to cast spells or things like that, because I'm having a bit of a hard time figuring out how you would use the Thieves Tools to replicate the effect of a spell. So if you have an interesting idea about how you could do that, put that in the comments below because I'm interested. The next things they change on page 55 is they add this text to the end of the second sentence, which is parentheses, meaning the spell has an M component when you cast it. So I'm actually going to open up, this is the Sword Coast Adventures guide. That's not going to help. So I'm going to open up Eberron here to the page in question, and I'm actually going to look and see what they are modifying. I totally missed it. Okay, so tools required. End of the second sentence. So the second sentence is, you must have a spellcasting focus, specifically Thieves Tools or some kind of Artisan's tools. So they had it in there already, so I'm not sure. In hand, when you cast any spell with this spellcasting feature, that doesn't make sense. And then following text would be added to the end of this second sentence. That's the second sentence. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense because that's the end of this sentence. And then it says, meaning the spell has an end component when you cast it, which doesn't make any sense with this. I wonder if that's a typo. I'm trying to see if I can find. Yeah, no idea what that's in reference to. It doesn't seem to make sense, but we will keep going. Infusing item, the following text has been added to the third paragraph, which is, if an infusion ends on an item that contains other things, like a bag of holding, its contents harmlessly appear in and around the space. So it just means if you make up a bag of holding and then it no longer becomes a bag of holding, things just pop into existence instead of you losing them for whatever reason. The right tools for the job, they add Thieves Tools. So it's possible that they had Thieves Tools in there, but they didn't list it everywhere. So now they're just covering their bases by listing it everywhere. They make some slight wording changes for Eldritch Cannon. Instead of until you expend a spell slot of first level or higher, they change it to until you expend a spell slot to create one. So just some wording changes to make it flow a little bit better. Doesn't change anything. And then the Eldritch Cannon, this third sentence has been changed. Eldritch Cannon. On the third paragraph, third sentence. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 2, 3. So the original sentence is, it is immune to poison damage, psychic damage, and all conditions. And now it is immune to poison damage and psychic damage. So it's no longer immune to conditions, which is interesting. And then both the Steel Defender and the Homunculus servant, they created new stat blocks for it that change how it works. And they changed some wording and things like that to make it easier to understand how to use it. So the first thing is they changed the second paragraph, which originally was, in combat, the Steel Defender shares your initiative count. If it takes its turn and immediately after yours, it can move and use its reaction on its own, but the only action it takes on its turn is the dodge action, unless you take a bonus action on your turn to command it to take one of the actions in its stat block, or the dash, disengage, help, hide, or search action. So really that was defining what the Steel Defender can do when you use a bonus action to command it. This just changes it to, in combat, shares your initiative count, takes its turn immediately after yours. It can move and use its reaction on its own, but the only action it takes on its turn is a dodge action, unless you take a bonus action on your turn to command it to take another action. The action can be one in its stat block or some other action. And if you are incapacitated, the defender can take any action of its choice, not just the dodge. So it makes some changes. These are things we saw in the Drake Warden Ranger subclass, which effectively, it doesn't limit what kind of actions you can make it take. Which doesn't really change a whole lot. I think they listed most of the actions in there. So this is just getting rid of excess words. And if you're incapacitated, you effectively can still play your Steel Defender. Yeah. And then it makes some other clarifications. The Defender also perishes if you die. And the stat block has been changed, which the big change to the stat block is they add a lot more things that are based on your proficiency bonus, and they specifically list them. Things like saving throws. It lists dexterity +1 plus your proficiency bonus. So your constitution is +2 plus your proficiency bonus. So it's really just clarifying things of, oh yeah, these abilities and the things get more powerful as you level up. Again, taking a really, really becoming very, very focused on the proficiency bonus. It's starting to look like Tasha's you can effectively call the proficiency bonus expansion, because everything seems to tied to it now. Which again, I'm not 100% against. It's just very different than what's been going on for the past 4 or 5 years. That did a D&D Beyond, or did a D&D 5th edition has been a thing. So, yeah. Other than that, everything else is the same on the stat block, except it will say things like the melee weapon attack for the Steel Defender is now your spell attack modifier to hit, instead of it just had a flat +4 to hit here. Now they specifically say spell attack modifier, which I think is your spell attack bonus, is what they call it literally everywhere else, which is your casting ability modifier plus your proficiency bonus. However, if they're just wanting it to be your just your ability modifier, they really should put your spellcasting ability modifier. I think they mean your spell attack bonus, and I don't know why they said your spell attack modifier. It seems weird. And then the hit is 1d8 plus your proficiency bonus. So, yeah, the Steel Defender gets more powerful as you level up. It did that before, and now they've just clarified things to make it simpler, make it easier to understand. Same thing happened with the Homunculus. They did mention that before, the Homunculus as a servant was a it's an artificer in fusion, but before it required you to be a 6th level artificer, and they've gotten rid of that. So you can create this Homunculus servant now, right when you first get your ability to infuse at, I think, 2nd level. So that's nice, especially since if you want your little homunculus, it makes sense to be able to have it pretty early on. And then they change the item from a gem worth at least 100 gold point or a dragon shard to a gem or crystal worth at least 100 gold points, or gold pieces. Sorry. and they removed the reference to Dragon Shard completely. So I'm assuming that means you can't make a Homunculus servant out of a Dragon Shard anymore because they don't have it there. Again, they changed these as a stat block. Mostly, again, to clarify the proficiency bonus stuff. And I'm going to take a drink real quick here. Much better. Okay. So yeah, this is the same changes to the Steel Defender and the Homunculus, where they just add the proficiency bonus in there a lot. And then they also made the same change to how it works in combat. With the in combat, it shares your initiative count, takes the turn immediately after yours. It'll only take the dodge action unless you take a bonus action to make it do something. So, and then if you're incapacitated, the Homunculus can take any action of its choice, not just the dodge. So, works very similar to the Steel Defender in that case. And that's it. There are a few other things like the Replicate Magic item. This is one of the infusions that you can do as a Artificer, and it adds this to it. Alternatively, you can choose the magic item from among the common magic items in the game, not including potions or scrolls. And then they cut out the third paragraph, which basically just said if you've got Xanathars, you can make any common item that's in Xanathars. So now they've expanded it to Artificers can infuse any common magic item in the game. So that is a lot, just to kind of give you an example of some common magic items. And that was one of the things that did limit the Artificer pretty heavily, was the fact that the things that you could infuse were remarkably limited. However, now you can infuse so many different things. My magic items. There I am. I'm on D&D Beyond right now, and I'm just... There we go. Common. So, to give you an example of some of the common magic items you can make, and I'm trying to find something a little bit more interesting. Something like the Hat of Wizardry, which you can use as a spellcasting focus for your wizarding spells. And you can try to cast a cantrip that you don't know. The cantrip must be on the wizard's spell list, and you must make a DC 10 Intelligence Arcana check. If you succeed, you can cast the spell. If you fail, so does the spell, and the action used to cast the spell is wasted. And you can only use that property once per long rest. So an interesting item. It's one that requires attunement by a wizard. So this wouldn't be something that the Artificer could use themselves, but they could give it to a wizard to basically give them a one-shot cantrip that they don't have to actually know, which is interesting. I'm trying to see if there's anything else in here. Rope of Mending, Ruby of the War Mage. Ruby of the War Mage is one of my favorites, because what it is it's just a little gem that you fuse into a weapon, and then you can use that weapon as a spellcasting focus. So really useful for Blade Singers, Eldritch Knights, really any class that wants to use a weapon in addition to casting spells. So you could even use it on a paladin if you want to cast spells from your sword, instead of using a holy symbol or anything like that. So yeah, super useful. Now it's this is something that artificers can use. So yeah, that I really like. Because of that, because all common items are on there, they remove some things from the replicate magic item table. The arm blade and the prosthetic limb have been removed since they are common magic items, so they can already do it. They don't need a special slot. The wand sheath has been removed, and they added the necklace of adaptation to the 10th level artificer table, and it requires attunement. I'm actually going to look for it. It's an uncommon item. And while wearing this in a necklace, you can breathe normally in any environment, and you have advantage on saving throws made against harmful gases and vapors, such as cloud kill and stinking cloud effects, inhaled poisons, and the breath weapons of some dragons. So it's effectively a rebreather, is what it is. Very interesting. When you think about like an artificer, like the idea that they wouldn't have made a gas mask or something, just doesn't make sense. Like I really like that idea that, oh yeah, I have a gas mask I can put on. I think it's cool. So yeah, there are more errata in there. I'm not going to go over it because most of it is for stuff that I've never covered in D&D Deep Dive. But that are the changes because of Tasha's guide to everything. Yeah, I'm excited for Tasha's. The stuff that they're showing here, they're listing here, means is pointing to some really cool, interesting changes. One of the comments on my Bladesinger video is someone actually wondered if they were actually going to improve the Bladesinger instead of just reprinting it. And it looks like from this errata, they are. They are making the Bladesinger more powerful and giving it the ability to weave spells and its attacks even more so than it has been able to before, which is awesome. I love the idea that the Bladesinger can now use the attack action a lot more often than it was before. Yeah, I'm interested to see what Tasha's looks like. So, as always, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this, or if you're as excited about Tasha's as I am, there will be a lot of content coming out. And be sure to hit the notifications bell to ensure that you never miss any of these videos. In the comments below, give me your coolest idea for an Artificer spell. What gadget would you use to cast any spell on the Artificer spell list? All right, let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, that's all for me today, and I will see you guys next time, all right? Bye-bye!